I wanted to show you quickly a reminder of how we can use clipping masks and even regular masks in both Procreate and Photoshop to get that interaction between our drawn lines and shapes and photo elements, whether that's like a texture that we bring in or a photograph that we bring in and combine with our drawing. So I have these two styles here, and I'm just going to show you some different. These are my style tests for my spot illustrations about paper airplanes, and I was going to, and so I want to show you a couple of methods. Probably I'll break it up in a few videos, but for the start, I'm going to share my screen over here on my iPad. If I can not color fill and actually get, oh my God. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I wanted to show you in Procreate what I have going on. I made all of these, or I drew all these different layers of my illustration, and some of these shapes and marks and lines are intended to be shapes that I'm going to apply other textures onto, but I wanted to go ahead and draw all of those shapes. I could make those in Photoshop as well. But anyway, so I've got, just to, so you can see what's going on, this is my little motion line, the plane kind of like line detail, the plane textures shadow, the plane fill shape. So if I turn off my line and my shadow, you can see that's just a shape that filled up the airplane. And then I have some cloud, solid shapes that I drew. I've got this texture line that I'm not sure if I want to use it. I also wanted this like scribbly line, you can see there. And then I have this background shape that's got kind of I used the Oberon brush, so it's got like a nice little texture around the rim of it, and it's got some transparent layers about it. And then just to show you, like, this was my photo reference that I took of a paper airplane that I made, and it's, roughly close, trying to give it a little bit more of a curved line in the back there. But so that's my Photoshop setup. And what I'm wanting to do, or my Procreate setup, I'm sorry, and what I'm wanting to do, and I turned the background off so I could see how this could float as a transparent element. And what I want to do is apply a clipping mask in here in Procreate to show you how you can do that, and then play with masks in Procreate, and then I'll show you also other ways in Photoshop. So for example, one of the things I want to explore is adding this gold texture on some of the line, or maybe on a shape. So I already sent from a Google search I did, Creative Commons licensed gold texture that I found on my computer, and I airdropped it to my iPad. And so now I'm going to insert it into this by going to the little wrench and the add category on the left, and then insert photo. So this is going to load up my photos, and I can bring in this gold texture. And so I'm going to place that, and what I want to do is put it over my line. I'm going to see what that looks like as a golden line. And so I can tap and sort of move these around. I'm going to put it on top of the thing that I want it to borrow the shape from. So I'm going to turn this gold texture into a clipping mask by tapping the layer and touching clipping mask there. And voila, like magic, the line layer that's just underneath this one is showing up gold. It's basically saying wherever there's material underneath, the layer immediately underneath, it's going to be gold. Now, I might want to repeat that. It might be cool to repeat that. I'm going to duplicate this gold layer and bring it down on, let's just try it on the clouds. I might need to bring this down and maybe even make it a little bit bigger, and I could rotate it by using some of these options. Once I hit the arrow, it gives me these different options at the bottom. I could flip it around so maybe it's got a kind of a different color effect than the lines. And then I will touch that layer and also make it a clipping mask. Now I have golden clouds in my illustration. That's pretty cool. What's also really cool is, in addition to it just taking the shape of the layer that I already created, I could add to that. So let's say I wanted to add some details on my plane, make it kind of like golden special details on my plane. I simply go to the layer that's underneath the clipping mask, and I was working with that textured line of a dry ink. And so whatever I add on this layer is also going to be gold. So I could draw some golden details if I wanted. Maybe my plane has some gold line details just to give it a little more stylistic effect. You know, you could really play with that. I don't know what to draw, so I'm just doodling, but whatever I draw here, you can see it's taking the gold texture of the layer above. That's the clipping mask. Okay, cool. So that's that. We could also, you know, bring something in. Let me see. I might replace my background layer with an actual image of a sky. So I could bring in my photo that I found. Oh, I didn't put in my photo of the sky. So let me just bring in this crumpled paper background as just to show you. And so maybe instead of the shape that I made, that I drew, I can let my crumpled paper become the background shape. And there are a couple things. I could use my clipping mask again, right? So I could turn on that background shape, make sure that this layer is bigger so it will show up. And you know, I want to work with really high quality images too, so that I'm not pixelating these as I make them, scale them up. And then touch it and make it a clipping mask. And now it's only going to show that paper, crumpled paper, where this shape is. And you can see the kind of like textured edge that it borrowed from the brush, but yet it still has that photo, the texture of the crumpled paper. Cool. In addition to using it as a clipping mask, I'm going to turn the clipping mask off for a minute. I could also just draw directly on it with a regular mask. So in Procreate, you can also make a mask, right? So you touch the layer, you add a mask. It's going to put a little layer on top, similar to Photoshop. It gives you a little mask thumbnail. And then you're working with your black and your white. So when you choose a color, you can double tap to get the black or double tap up there to get the white. And for this, I'm going to mask out like the outside of this paper to get a similar effect. So that means I need to work with black to conceal. And I just want to give this like a better, softer edge, I guess, than what is currently just a big rectangle. Maybe working with a brush that's not as opaque would help me here, or not as transparent would help me here. But so I'm kind of scribbling around, masking out the outside, and I could erase, right? But maybe I go too far, and I could bring it back, right? So that's why masking is really great. I can mask. I can bring back what I'm missing. Although now I need to soften this edge where it's kind of the edge of my paper. So I need to make it a little smaller. I'm working back and forth with the white and the black. Okay. So don't forget, you could use masks, clipping masks, and drawn layer masks in Procreate as well.